Okay, first, as far as the RaRa Thomas arrest goes, all I really have to say is wow. Right? If all that's true, wow. Moving on. The second thing I want to say is Georgia's going to be just fine at wide receiver, regardless of the long-term outcome of RaRa Thomas and his status with the team. At the moment I'm recording this, which is Friday night, this will be going out Saturday at 11 a.m. The update is that RaRa Thomas has been sources telling Dawg Post, hey, he's suspended indefinitely. So let's just assume that that's the case. Let's say he's not playing. I don't know. Let's just say he's not playing with Georgia anymore. Right? That's not necessarily the case, but it totally could be. Georgia's going to be fine at wide receiver. I think RaRa Thomas was certainly in line to make a real impact for Georgia this coming year. I don't think that he was going to be a superstar. I don't know that any of Georgia's receivers are really going to be a superstar. I don't think that's not a knock. I just don't know if that's what any of these guys are. I think that as a collective group, it's really good. And with RaRa Thomas, it was better. It's still a very, very good group of wide receivers. When you look at the input in this offseason, the output, what came in, what went out, I think that Georgia got better at the wide receiver position. And I think that that's going to help out Carson Beck a lot. And, maybe if you consider Brock Bowers part of that pass catching group, then no, they don't have anyone that's as good as Brock or will have the impact that Brock Bowers had for Georgia. But I do think that as a group, it's really good. It's not Ohio State's. It's not. I think that Texas will be all right. I think that across the country, individual receivers, right? I don't know that there's this elite unit like 2019 LSU, 2020 Alabama was certainly an elite unit. I think that 2020. A lot of the Ohio State wide receiver rooms of recent, and in the same case with Bama and LSU, those have been the three best schools in terms of producing high-end wide receiver talent. Georgia hasn't been that, right? You got George Pickens, you got a gap between him and AJ Green in terms of, these guys are legitimate first-round guys. Ladd McConkey, obviously last year, A.D. Mitchell, but none of them, A.D. Mitchell and Ladd McConkey, national championship contributors, they didn't live out their full potential as a wide receiver. And Ladd McConkey, and those guys were 3 stars, right? We're talking about bona fide, NFL wide receiver rooms. Georgia hasn't been putting those guys out. They can still win the national championship. And RaRa Thomas's probable absence from the team, that seems long-term to me, is not going to be the end-all, be-all. That's what you get out of Georgia, who is competing for national championships and has a next man up mentality. They've said it over and over and over again. You get hurt. You get hurt. Next man up. All right, JT Daniels. Happened to him. Kirby said it to Malachi Starks and to a blanket on the guy on the walk-on that does the players' lounge with him. But they told that story about Kirby when it came to the transfer portal. What did he have to say to them? You want to leave? We will replace you. Unfortunately for young men that get themselves in these situations, Adam Anderson, replaced. They won rings after that. If that's the case with RaRa, it's, and I don't like speaking on legal stuff. I really don't like having to have these kinds of conversations. And this is mostly just about how good Georgia's wide receiver room is with or without him. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post claiming that Georgia's receivers are going to be good enough to get the job done in 2024. At least we're working off projections here. Georgia is projected to be the best, if the second or the first best team in college football. I think that we'll see them in the end. I think getting to Atlanta is realistic. I just think that they're that good. And if there is a team that's built for the long run in the end, it's the Dogs, right? I mean, they've got Kirby, they've got Schumann, they've got a staff that's experienced, and they've got depth, right? When I look at Georgia's depth chart at the wide receiver, a rough depth chart, right? They could put Kobe Young at that spot that RaRa was maybe going to play at a lot. And they were probably going to rotate a lot anyway in there. That's kind of Georgia's whole MO with a lot of position groups. Not just the offensive line, not just the running backs, the wide receivers. You see a lot of different guys go in and out. What you've seen recently, go-to guys, Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, and then it's a sprinkle, a big sprinkle of a lot of guys. Arian Smith gets a few catches, right? You get the stats from last year. Carson spread the love. 56 catches, 714 yards for Bowers. 54 for 613 for Dominic Lovett. 34 for 535 for Marcus Williams-Jackson. 30 for 478 for Ladd. 23 for 383 for RaRa. Dylan Bell, 29 for 355. Oscar Delp, 24 for 284. I think it's going to be similar. Some of the names are just going to be different. And what are you going to get out of that? I expect an elevation for Dominic Lovett. I expect an elevation for Dylan Bell. I think that their roles increase on this team with Bowers, Marcus Williams-Jackson, and Ladd McConkey out the door. Specifically, Dominic Lovett. I think he'll be the number one target for Carson Beck. Right? At this point, it just feels like the safe answer. He had the best spring out of any of the pass catchers. We actually saw that. It wasn't just what was talked about. We actually got to see that at G-Day. He's very good. And one thing that he's got going for him that matters to me, and some of the, that's the case with a few of these guys, but it was also the case with RaRa Thomas. Experience in the conference. Dominic Lovett's got it. And he knows he's played in big games in the conference as well. He and Dylan Bell are dynamic. Dylan Bell's a dynamic guy. And you add a big 6'5 receiver like Kobe Young, who was going to make his way out on the field anyway as kind of your X guy, your big pass catcher on the outside. I don't think that the RaRa thing's going to hurt them that much. They've got Arian Smith. They've got Anthony Evans, who's an exciting sophomore. And 4 other guys that they added, right? I talked about the transfer Kobe Young, but also you got 2 freshmen in Sokovie White and Nitro Tuggle that they're excited about. Sokovie White scored at G-Day, if you remember that. And they've got 2 other transfer wide receivers, London Humphreys and Michael Jackson III. There's just so many names, and this is not one of those things where I cover Georgia so I know a bunch of these names. Like, these are legit guys. London Humphreys and Kobe Young were legit guys in the transfer portal. Arian Smith is a speedster. I don't think that Arian Smith's impact on the game is that big, and that's fine. The proof is in the numbers. But when you add all that to knowing that Dominic Lovett and Dylan Bell are going to be out there a lot, that Oscar Delp and Benjamin Urasek and Lawson Lucky have been around in college football. Lawson Lucky, obviously, a sophomore, but has played a year for Georgia. I just think that it's a pass-catching group that is good enough to win because of how good the rest of you've got for Georgia. When you look at national champions, a lot of them are very well-rounded football teams. And the last 3 national champions, Michigan, Georgia, exemplified that exactly. Strong defense, strong trenches, solid quarterback play, in some cases really good quarterback play, Stetson Bennett. And good, not A-plus skill position players. Brock Bowers is an A-plus skill position player. Michigan, is Blake Corum that with the production? Sure. But Michigan didn't have all these wide receivers, right? Georgia, they got a better wide receiver room than Michigan had last year. And then you look at Georgia in 22, it was Bowers and McConkey. They were 1 and 2. And a sprinkle of A.D. Mitchell, who was hurt a lot. Sprinkle of Kearis Jackson and Marcus Williams-Jackson. 2021, it's kind of similar. A tiny sprinkle of George Pickens, a little of A.D. Mitchell. They spread the love. You got to go back to 2020 Bama with that wide receiver room. 2019, LSU, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall. And then I think about that 2018 Clemson team. T. Higgins was on that team, right? NFL talent there for sure, but it wasn't this loaded wide receiver room. They're just stacked with guys everywhere. 2017 Alabama, yes. Devontae Smith was the freshman who got the game-winning catch against Georgia. They had Jerry Jeudy and those guys. 2016 Clemson, you get Mike Williams. So yes, there's NFL talent, and there's NFL talent in Georgia's wide receiver room. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to have this like Ohio State, right? And maybe, I'm not saying anything that's that crazy, but my point with Georgia is even if you remove a guy like RaRa Thomas, who got the recognition of being an 85 overall in that video game, Georgia's room is still very good. Why? They're stacked everywhere. They've got the best quarterback in college football, and I think you're going to see a fruitful year in the air for Georgia. Thanks for watching. Link is down below for the newsletter.